What is an industry secret that you know? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. The $3,000 a month one-bedroom condo you are renting in the heart of a very large city probably has bottles of urine behind the drywall. They really need to put more washrooms in large construction sites. Answer. I was a night watchman at a country club, and the company they hired to put in sprinklers buried trash in their trenches. How I know? I secretly metal detected that golf course for about 20 years and dug up coins, jewelry, Civil War relics, and metal trash. I was hoping the new dirt they dug would unearth some deep buried finds, coins and Civil War relics, that my metal detector could not previously reach. I found a few, but found a lot of very recent trash. Oh, one thing I have heard is that some contractors, if they find a body, they will cover it up since it causes a lot of problems getting the job done. Just easier to not report the discovery of the body. Story 2. Theater seats aren't all the same size. Some are narrower than others. We use a variety to manipulate the sawtooth arrangement so that you look through a gap between heads, not straight into the head of the person in front of you. That means some seats are better, i.e. wider, than others. Story 3. Many musicians that sing play on your favorite tracks aren't even credited on the album. Most performers that have great album tracks but suck live likely have their albums recorded by unknown but extremely talented sessionist producers. Story 4. Veterinarian here. Most or all of your pets' supplements you buy online or in stores are just snake oil. The anti-anxiety supplements, the special diets, the vitamins, and yes, even the CBD supplements. It's all bullshit, all of it. So many fly-by-night companies with huge marketing budgets and zero accountability. So many marketing ploys, so many advertisements. Also, your fancy schmancy boutique food manufacturers who have no business history and are gone within a few years. More expensive food does not equal higher quality. Dogs need grain. Don't feed grain-free. Feeding a grain-free diet means the grains are replaced by legumes. Legumes block the amino acid needed to have a healthy heart. Dogs who are on GF diets that develop heart disease get switched back to a normal diet, have their heart problems reduced or resolved. Many food companies claim to be supervised by a veterinary nutritionist. You should know that there are only 14 veterinary nutritionists in the entire U.S. Feeding raw food diets will land your pet in the hospital with me for several days, from hemorrhagic gastroenteritis secondary from salmonella or listeria food poisoning. Raw diets are not appropriate for any breed or condition. Your dog is nothing like a fudge wolf. Your dog is not sad to be fed the same diet every day. It's just a marketing ploy. Food bags have a feeding guideline on the back. This is the caloric requirement for an intact working male dog. Max calorie needs. This is to sell more dog food. If you are going to feed by the back of the bag, reduce that number by 25. Otherwise, you will be sprinting towards obesity. No, I am not paid by the major manufacturers, Purina, Hills, etc., nor was my education funded by them, nor do I have any interactions with their representatives. I have no incentives to recommend the major brands and manufacturers. I recommend them because they are tried true, employ nutritionists, perform research, even though it's usually biased, and have a reputation to uphold. Story 5. Almost all good glues, tapes, thermal pads, and lamination foils that hold things like cars together are made by Sekisui in Japan. The PVB that everyone in the world uses to make laminated glass, Sekisui. Half of any given Tesla is held together or cooled by Sekisui materials. Story 6. If you're shopping online, start the checkout process and then before paying, close your window. You'll very likely get a coupon with a discount over the next few days in your email. Answer, kind of related, but back around 2008, my cousin wanted to buy gold for World of Warcraft. He filled everything out and just left it at checkout on the website. 40 minutes later, we get a phone call from an angry Chinese woman asking if he was going to buy it or not. That was a big nope for us after that. I don't know who thinks that is a valid business strategy or even a good idea. It did scare him out of breaking the rules though, so I guess that's good. Story 7. Dawn dish soap is the single best way to clean up an oil spill on the small scale. The U.S. government went to great lengths to try and make their own cheaper in-house equivalent of Dawn for cleaning up oil, but they found that they couldn't make it better or cheaper than Dawn already did, so they just buy Dawn. Story 8. This tip was recommended to me by a travel agent. When you check into a hotel, politely ask the desk clerk if they offer any complimentary room upgrades. I was embarrassed to try this, but when I did, Ocean City MD Hilton Suites, they upgraded my suite to a top floor with wraparound balcony including jacuzzi. No extra charge. My travel agent friend explained many hotels provide free upgrades, but they don't volunteer it. You have to inquire. It works so well, I successfully used this trick at 3 other hotels. If they don't offer this, they just say no, but there's no harm asking. Story 9. If you give one website your name, another website your number, and another website your email, there are services that merge info together by scanning the web and build a profile of you for ad targeting and sales. Some of you may assume this already, but it is standard practice and utilized more frequently than you might think. Answer: it goes even deeper than that. I work in this back-end data aggregation industry. Companies will go even as far as to use your apps on your phone to connect information like which games you play, how much social media you use, etc. Even deeper is when you do that little agree thing to use your location or accept cookies. The more sophisticated AI web crawler technology will add to your profile a deep dive of where you work, based on idle times, what stores you frequent, based over a year of stopping there, where your kids go to school, etc. It's to the point where a cumulative AI more than likely knows more about you than you do about yourself. And companies sell this data to each other, so the stack of info about you only gets more and more intelligent with every move you make. Companies can also utilize tech such as geofences. Think of geofences like an invisible area you enter and a trigger goes off, like Snapchat filters when you're in an area and you can use the filter because you're within the grow fence. I recall early in my career working with a client where if you had their app or were signed up for email promotions, when you walked through a geofence, they would send you a coupon. The geofence was always within about 3 city blocks of their stores to drive you into shop. Another client in the automotive industry told me they were putting in non-removable black boxes into all of their new vehicles. They buried away the terms in the fine print. The black boxes collected information like how often you were stopped, how much you go over the speed limit, all the way to precise data like how often you swerve out of your lane, down to the millimeter, the road conditions you travel, how often you use the mist on your windshield. Keep in mind, all of this info is being added to a data set about you. They then take this data and sell it to insurance companies to charge you higher rates, tire companies to give an AI-level estimate of when you'd need new tires, car shops to diagnose problems before they even exist. If you want to see the location tracking that can be sold in action on your iPhone, tap Settings. Scroll down and tap Privacy, Security, Location Services. Tap System Services at the bottom of the page. Select significant locations. I could go on for hours about some of the incredibly unethical practices being used on the internet by companies to build alarming data sets about people. Story 10. There are some massive defense contracts given out to certain companies that objectively should never, a history of over-budget and under-delivery, have been given, but politicians hijacked the bidding process and made it quite clear that facts weren't considered, and anyone of the bidding team that disagrees will be sideways promoted off it. Story 11. If you ever get a root canal, the dentist will be rinsing the inside of your tooth with household bleach. We call it hypo or hypochlorite or irrigant, but it's just household bleach. Story 12. Used to screen resumes for small companies. Job requirements are more of a wish list situation. Never let some unchecked box deter you from applying. You have no idea what the applicant pool is like. The biggest boon, especially at small companies, is someone who legitimately cares. Answer: manager in tech, and this is right. Caveat being that you really do need the top 3-6 requirements, as those are probably the first thing the hiring manager is looking for. But after that, it gets more flexible. In the interview, though, just be honest. If the manager is at all smart, they are going to see through your bullshit and immediately count you out as a liar. Be honest, but talk through similar experience and talk about how you learn new things. I can often teach knowledge, but skills and an ability to learn research is impossible to train. Story 13. Used to work in a company that processed customer mail for other companies. So if you ever sent a powdered envelope or one with dirt or other shoot to get back at some company that annoyed you, it might not even have reached the company in case. And if it did, because you, for instance, addressed it to the CEO or whatever, you probably achieved nothing except that the mailroom had to be in lockdown for several hours. So thanks a lot. Story 14. Scientists and academics in general are not capable of any conspiracies because they're gossipy loudmouths who also drink a lot. Story 15. Walmart assistant store manager training includes a day of indoctrination into anti-union propaganda. There's a whole video section and their legal team comes in to tell you why unions are bad. Answer: I worked at Walmart for 3 years. During orientation, they asked me what I learned about unions during my training. I responded with, Walmart is anti-union. The HR lady slammed her hand on the table and said, "No, we are not anti-union. We just do not believe that a union is beneficial." Then I had to watch the union video again. That is clearly anti-union. Story 16. Smoke alarms don't wake young children up. Research shows that kids sleep through the alarm going off, but they do typically wake up to a mother's voice telling the child to wake up, there is a fire. Sorry, dads, no research for you. In the U.S., there is no approved voice recording smoke detector. So if there is ever a fire in a house with kids, wake the kids up because the alarm won't. Story 17. 9 times out of 10, I can tell you what a student's final grade will be 2 weeks into the school year. Story 18. A table games dealer cannot affect your odds of winning or losing a hand. However, they can control the way you play the hand, which in turn affects your odds. Answer. I used to play a lot of blackjack and always played by the book. I tipped big. I'd be about half or full-on tipsy. Are you sure you want to hit that or some other move outside basic strategy? They help me. Also, many times have told me not to sit at their tables when the cards are running bad. Also told me to leave the table up when I was way up. Also free sweets and meals and many other freebies. Story 19. The curriculum at your child's school is provided by the company that did the best presentation or has some connection to district administration, not the one with the best track record. Story 20. Chefs don't use secret ingredients. They use practiced techniques and tools like a thermometer and a timer. Those 2 tools will separate you from 95 of home cooks. Story 21. The Sri Lankan education industry, it's not a secret to people in the country, but it is to people outside. Parents encourage teachers to harmful behavior, the kids we do bad in class. Like not just verbally, but full-on physical, punching, slapping, and etc. They strongly believe physical violence is the only way to educate kids. So there are stores specifically just for different equipments to beat us up, ranging from bamboo, sticks, to wooden logs. The rarest is a stingray tail, which is kind of like an alternative for a whip. My dad had 3 of those. Story 22. I worked at the Rolled Gold pretzel factory many years ago. Out of the ovens would come the best pretzels made for Rolled Gold. Down the conveyor belts, they would roll until they arrived at the cellophane packing machines. Some of the pretzels would go down chute 1, the Rolled Gold cellophane bags. The price on those bags was $3.99. Some of the same batch would go down chute 2, the Great Value pretzel bags. Those pretzel bags were priced at $1.99. Other pretzels from that same batch rolled down chute 3, the Kroger brand. Those pretzels were priced at $2.49. All the pretzels were the same pretzels with different prices. You see, stores like Walmart and Kroger are not manufacturers. They are retail merchants. They don't make anything. They have contracts with thousands of manufacturers that make their own products, plus they will also produce for other merchants. It only behooves a manufacturer to have a lucrative contract with some of the biggest retailers in the world. They not only are selling their product on that shelf, but for a little less money, they are providing product for the retailer. You never know who Walmart or Kroger is contracting with for each product. You just have to try it. But always remember, Walmart is not a manufacturer. Whatever has Walmart's trademark names on it was made by some other company. So sometimes the brand name that you might think is unbeatable is the same thing that's in the bargain brand. This is a fact, not everything, but many things. Story 23. Nurse here. Of course, we try to treat everybody equally, but if we have 6 patients each and you're a male body part, we have 5 other patients we will happily give more time to because who wants to hang out with an a-hole? That being said, if you bring us cookies, ETS night shift, and write on the box, "Thank you from the family in room 24, you will get more attention because now all of the nurses are aware of the patient in room 24. The next thing I say is very important, so pay attention. If you are a patient and suddenly start feeling anxious, call us. I know being in the hospital is anxiety-inducing, so this is more of a blast of anxiety disproportionate to how you were before. But even if you are unsure, call us. We can decide together how we want to evaluate and treat said anxiety. Even if we, you, the patient, and I, the nurse, decide it's probably nothing, we need to decide together. Do not blow it off. There are too many deadly things that start with a pop of anxiety. Tell us. Neither you or I want to find out the hard way it wasn't just anxiety. Finally, if you need something and your call light fell or something, pull off one of your wires to your ECG monitor. Someone will be in to fix it. Answer. Your anxiety line rings true. I went into an ER one night because I felt off. I couldn't explain the feeling. I got lucky. A genetic CA doc was shadowing the cases that came in that night. Mine, my lab so far caught her attention. 15 more vials of blood confirmed I had cancer. 1 genetic test confirmed MEN1. If I had ignored how I was feeling or chose a different night, the puzzle may never had been solved. Story 24. Those razor blade Cartridges that Gillette sells for 20 pounds for a pack of 5 cost Gillette were point when to make. Gillette goes to great lengths to keep that secret. Story 25. No matter how high up the chain you get, nobody really knows what's going on. Everyone is winging it for any work that falls outside their very specific area of expertise. Answer: honestly, the more of an expert you become in your field, the more you realize how much you are winging it, whether you're a higher up or not. Don't get me wrong, you're making informed decisions, but a majority of the time you are picking the best option given the information you have. You won't actually find out until later if it was the right option. Story 26. Sandwiching 20 between your credit card and ID in Vegas doesn't get you a better room. Be kind. Ask for any available complimentary upgrades. If there aren't any free ones, ask what's available at a discount. If available, they'll happily give it to you. Story 27. Ooh, I like this thread. Okay, this is niche, but as a college application coach, the personal essay matters even more now that many students are using AI to write them. I have been doing human language research since 2013-2014, so I can pinpoint what about an essay makes me suspect AI. Many high school teachers don't care and use inaccurate AI checkers, and many admissions officers cannot tell AI versus. Story 28. Nutrition labels on small, not well-known brands can be inaccurate, and nobody would ever know. Once you send your food product out to a lab to have a nutrition label created for it, that is the last time anyone is ever going to check it. It would take someone to pay for a new analysis at a lab to see if the percentage of coir gum, for example, is still accurate, and nobody's going to do that. Answer: there are 3 cases in this link alone, with the most ridiculous being Slim Fast deciding they can just make up a protein number, and when confronted said, "Oh, that's the amount of protein you would get if you ate our drink with milk." Like, what? Nothing on the label indicated that's what they meant, and it certainly wasn't the amount in the bottle. Like 2 grams of protein in it versus 10 that was listed on the nutrition facts. And they did it with their other 20-gram one too. Nowhere near that amount. See the other 2 as well in these class action suits. Story 29. If a radio station says they're taking the Xth caller, they're not. They're just taking a random caller. I worked at a radio station and they told me to just get a winner. Story 30. Oncologist. Most doctors don't change their prescribing behavior after residency. If your doc got his degree in 1978, you'll get care from the early 80s. Story 31. When investigating a DUI, or whatever your state in the U.S. calls tipsy driving, there are only 3 standardized tests that are recognized as determining factors of adult beverage intoxication: horizontal gaze nystagmus, the follow my finger with your eyes test, one leg stand, and the walk and turn. If an officer has you recite the alphabet backwards or put the tip of your finger to your nose, they are conducting completely unreasonable and unnecessary testing. Also, these tests are 100% voluntary in all 50 states, and refusing to do them is not an admission of guilt, but agreeing to do them only provides more evidence to be used against you in court. Not a lawyer, but did work as a deputy sheriff for a number of years. Bottom line, don't drive tipsy, but it also helps to know your rights. Story 32. Optometrists will not give you your pupillary distance, PD, after an eye exam, even though they measure it, to make it difficult to order glasses online. Answer: in the state of California, they're legally required to give you your PD. If they try to omit it from your RX and/or give you shoot about giving it to you, go to breeze.ca.gov and file a complaint. You'll get your PD, and they'll eat both a fine and an audit to see how many patients they've scammed. Source: Stanton Optical shouldn't have tried to play my jerk. Story 33. Vehicles are offloaded from roll-on, roll-off ferries, aka RoRos, in a specific order for weight and balance reasons. If you are nice to the crew and give us cookies, you will be offloaded sooner. If you are verbally harmful behavior to the crew, you will be offloaded last, dead last, for weight and balance. Story 34. Never take the first settlement offer. Always counter. When dealing with savvy parties, the initial settlement demand is often twice the amount of money that the party wants. Story 35. A few logistics food supply. A lot of produce that is around a year old by the time it gets to you. Potatoes, apples, any root vegetable, really, they get picked and put into giant refrigerated sheds and have trucks pick them up on a regular basis to go to distributors or processors. Finance. There is a small contingent of very smart but also psychopathic people who know what they're doing in the market. A large portion of the rest of the commercial side is made up by people who simply understand the trends of order flow and edge. They know someone is offering for this much and someone wants to pay that much, and they're middle manning it with software or on the phone. And the third side is made up of nepotism hires and white bread nerds who just answer the phone and plug in numbers at big banks. Recruiting. Recruiters, headhunters legitimately want to get you a job because that's the only way they get paid. Companies are shoot and don't give a fudge about you. Recruiters are constantly calling them multiple times, following up asking for feedback, trying to schedule you for the next round, etc. They are on your side and trying to get you hired because it makes them money, and in some part of their heart, they actually give a shoot about you. Answer. Important note on produce. The sheds are incredibly highly controlled. Oxygen is pulled off and certain gases are put in to prevent ripening, rotting fermentation. While maintenance personnel are keeping a keen eye on the gas concentrations temperatures of the sheds, they aren't coming in and out willy-nilly. Once the shed is cracked open, the whole lot is shipped off to be sold. Story 36. Teachers routinely fudge kids' grades upward. Sometimes it's because a kid is nice. Sometimes it's because administrators pressure us. Sometimes we're afraid of being sued. That high graduation rate at your local HS, it's most likely due to the books being cooked. ETA. I've said this before, but this whole situation is a prime example of Goodhart's law in action. When a metric becomes a target, it loses all meaning. The HS I teach at touts a low number of suspensions and no expulsions this year. And yet, it is almost guaranteed that a student will tell me to go fudge myself when I ask for his phone tomorrow. ETA. Again, for all the people talking about kids getting held back, that doesn't happen anymore, really. I've been teaching 20 years, and I can count on one hand the number of students I've seen get held back. It's exceptionally rare. Answer. I absolutely should have failed one of my classes junior year. The teacher was on medical leave and I didn't do any of the classwork for an entire semester. When she came back suddenly one day, she called everybody up one by one to collect all of their work from that time to be graded. I apologized and told her I didn't do any of it. She looked me up and down and said, "Well, I'll give you a C for honesty." Really dumb of me to not do the work, but she always liked me because I was quiet and stayed in my lane. Very fortunate that she fudged the shoot out of that grade for me. Story 37. The places you put your parents, even the more expensive ones, independent and assisted living. Most are owned by investors who really don't care about your loved ones, especially the larger corporate ones with multiple units in different states. Some people are paying thousands per month for the bare minimum of care and facilities. The shoot I see and hear will make your skin crawl. Answer. My partner is a firefighter and paramedic. She works in a part of town where there is a large elderly population. She gets called to care homes almost every shift. They do not give two shoot about their residents. They will leave people on the ground, covered in their own feces, and wait for the paramedics to come take care of them. They often don't do even the most basic checks before calling 911. She's had multiple patients that were dead because the staff neglected to perform life-saving care, and not in a DNR case. It's incredibly sad. Story 38. Restaurant industry. Most of the time, anything that is the special of that night is only the special because the product is very close to spoiling and it needs to be sold. Story 39. The entire airline industry is really messed up, from price fixing to discriminatory hiring practices. The whole industry and most every airline is guilty of the same crimes. Answer. I've worked as a baggage handler for 2 major U.S. airlines. When I went to the interview for the second one, they told me you already have experience, so as long as you showed up for the interview, you got the job. Management gave me no training at all. They told me to find a senior employee and shadow them for a few weeks. I was hired in May and was told to figure it out on my own. The group that was hired in October got a full training class and slowly integrated into actual work. Also, flights are intentionally overbooked because they anticipate human stupidity to miss flights. For example, sleeping in and missing alarm for a morning flight, tight connection that gets missed, didn't plan enough time for security. Story 40. Brand loyalty is totally pointless, especially with financial institutions. They don't give a fudge about you. Answer. The exact opposite exists in construction. In construction, brand loyalty can save your jerk, both with cost. If you have been using X brand for years, you can almost always get reduced pricing. And most importantly, with maintenance. There is a reason that you see the same brands of equipment at a company's job sites and others have completely disappeared. Brands that made things intentionally difficult, looking at you, John Deere, have all but disappeared from many jobs. Story 41. Food expiration dates, especially on shelf-stable foods, are essentially arbitrary. Nutrition labels are often wildly inaccurate. It is technically not legal to use false information, but it's very, very rare to be caught unless you are making health-related claims. Those food certifications that you see on food labels are provided by for-profit companies that bill you monthly, so they are highly incentivized to certify as many companies as they can and actively ignore violations. A shocking number of ingredients that are illegal or heavily regulated in other developed countries are perfectly legal and mostly unregulated in the U.S. The same companies that make store brands at higher-end stores, like Wegmans and Whole Foods, make them for cheaper stores like Walmart and Aldi. I could go on. Story 42. Just last night, we were playing a gig, and my guitarist said he was going to show us a little trick he uses to get everyone on the dance floor. Over the mic, he asked everyone to come up in front of the stage so we could get a group picture of everyone who came to the show. As soon as he got the pic, we started playing, and everyone stayed on the floor until the end of the set. It was a great. Story 43. In-store bakeries and supermarkets cost more to operate than doing it off-site in large factories and shipping the stuff in daily, but they operate them anyway because the smell of fresh bread increases sales, not just of bread, but across all product types. In reality, only a small proportion of the bread they sell is actually baked in the store bakery anyway. This is also why the fresh grocery fruit and vegetables are usually right by the door. Walking into that gives the impression that this is a store full of fresh and natural goods, which subconsciously triggers positive emotions in our brains. Story 44. Even the most beautiful movie and TV actors sometimes look like hell when they show up for work at the makeup hair trailer in the morning. When the Fox TV network was first starting, I was shooting a bunch of promos for their shows, including Married with Children, and I was first on stage when Christina Applegate showed up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, and I called lot security because I thought she was a homeless person who had wandered onto the lot and the stage. She's a lovely person, don't mistake me, and very attractive. But first thing that morning, whew. Story 45. Most of the people running your college or university have absolutely no background or even training in management, budgets, employment law, or anything you'd think is necessary for their job. Quite a few of them were former professors who know their content really well and then never bothered to learn how to actually manage complex institutions. They make mistakes constantly and just smooth things over, or TBHA, just make the same mistakes over and over again until they leave for a better job. The real people who run the college universities? Almost inevitably, the secretary in the provost's office who has a high school diploma is ridiculously underpaid and without whom the entire institution would sink. Story 46. When you book through a third party for hotels, we treat you differently. It's not malicious, but just know that your experience will be different than a direct booking. Story 47. Water coming from wastewater treatment plants is cleaner than the river water it's going into. The main problem is not enough dissolved oxygen. That's seriously the biggest danger. Meanwhile, the worst pollution for most rivers is runoff causing high biochemical oxygen demand, Baudouin, aka too much food for bacteria that also consume O2. So just like the danger from the wastewater treatment plant, fish suffocate. All the random stuff from metal finishers is stopped before it's allowed into the sewer system, if the system is working correctly. Story 48. The back end of the entire financial sector, in the U.S. anyway, is held together by the technical equivalent of termites holding hands to keep a decrepit house standing. Like we're talking COBOL code that was written in the 60s and 70s. Barely anyone alive understands it, and making tiny changes to stay current is usually a very big project. Story 49. With the advancement in lab-grown diamonds in the past few years, even the most experienced gemologists can barely distinguish them from mined diamonds. Don't waste your money on real diamonds anymore. ETA. Yes, most, if not all, lab-grown diamonds have an inscription, which is how a jeweler would know the difference, though these can be hard to find immediately, as they're very small. But I mean, from a quality standpoint, it's very difficult to tell, and lab-grown tend to be better quality, clarity, color, cut. So if I jeweler can't tell until it's in a loop, the average person definitely can't. The proper lab-grown don't have the bright blue fire that moissanites do, which gives them away. Also, I worked at a jewelry store for years with a very experienced gemologist goldsmith, whom I'm still friends with and have had him tell me these things. I also took a lot of diamond and jewelry training while I was there. I'm not just pulling it out of my jerk. Story 50. Thrift shops throw away a lot of donations, and there's bugs in the back more often than would make any customer comfortable. Story 51. If you are having problems with your insurance claim in the U.S., every state has a free service through the State Department of Insurance that will fight the insurance companies on your behalf. Use them instead of public adjusters. Story 52. I used to work at a clothing distribution center, and we would price tag items to be sent to various stores. Same garment from the same box would be tagged at quadruple or more for higher-end stores. Swimsuit going to Walmart would be tagged 10, while being tagged at 50 going to Saks Fifth Avenue. Both from the same box, out of a Chinese container. Changed how I shopped very quickly. Story 53. I wouldn't think this is a secret, but the amount of people who tell me I'm good at claw machines makes me think somehow people don't know claw machines are scamming you. They have an electromagnet inside the claw. Electricity goes to the magnet. It pulls on a pin which forces the claw shut. High voltage sent to the magnet means it really clenches down. Low voltage means it has the grip of a sick toddler. Then the motherboard is just set to how often it delivers a high voltage, what frequency, which type of pattern, randomized, fixed rate, etc. It has sensors to know when you won, so it can regulate itself based on whatever the settings are set to. You aren't good at claw machines, sir. You have been bamboozled. All the similar machines have the same type of tricks. Story 54. Been on Ozempic for a few months. My doctor, probably not an actual MD, stopped checking my A1C because if it gets to a low enough range, the insurance company won't pay for the Ozempic anymore, so they just stopped testing it. Story 55. All the most famous living artists have workshops full of people who make the art for them. They spend their time choosing concepts, talking to their gallery reps, and schmoozing buyers. The only time they touch the work is to sign it. Answer. Similarly, there's a very strong chance your favorite author uses ghostwriters. Unless your favorite is George R.R. Martin, whose publishers probably fudge wish he'd let them bring in ghostwriters so they could finally sell you The Winds of Winter, or J.K. Rowling, because if a ghostwriter turned in text so riddled with adverbs, we'd be replaced with a more competent writer. Source was a ghostwriter, not a particularly high-level one, but I wrote a couple of minor bestsellers before I packed it in to languish in obscurity under my own name. Story 56. The stuff that makes movie theater popcorn taste like movie theater popcorn is called flavacol. It's a salt-like additive that you can buy yourself and add to your popcorn at home. A carton lasts forever because you only need like a teaspoon of flavacol per cup of kernels, and it's indistinguishable from the popcorn you get at the movies. Answer. Flavacol comes in classic butter and better butter flavors. No joke, the better butter tastes better. You don't need any other seasoning, but you do add oil, dyed canola if you want the authentic experience, to the pot, along with the flavacol, of course. If you're in Canada, you can buy the same stuff as the theaters here. More notes. You want butterfly corn kernels, not mushroom. And if you want your popcorn to be even better than the cinema, get white kernels because they don't have husks. Story 57. Banks lend immense amounts of money based on some pretty crap models and fairly useless financial assumptions. Story 58. The American agricultural industry is absolutely rife with child harmful behavior exploitation. I could go into painful detail, but I honestly might just make a bigger post elsewhere. Story 59. The Better Business Bureau holds no authority over businesses. If you have an issue with a business, putting in a complaint with the BBB is nothing. For example, if you have an issue with a contractor, go to your state's registrar of contractors and file a complaint. Story 60. Wine and spirits rep here. The amount of pay-to-play and the shady shoot you have to do to just get your brand on a menu is insane sometimes. It's all 100 illegal, but nobody bats an eye unless you really fudge up. These deals are all kept off work email and work phones because state liquor boards can subpoena those records. There are massive fines associated with breaking those laws. Story 61. I was told during my driver training for a public bus company, if a car pulls out in front of you, causing you to slam the brakes, hit it. Let the passengers claim insurance from the car driver. If you slam the brakes, avoid the collision, the injured passengers will sue the bus company. Answer. I dated a truck driver who told me that when he trained newbies, he would tell them to never swerve and instead eliminate the idiot driver that cut them off. When driving a huge trailer, it is a matter of his life or the life of the stupid driver cutting him off, causing a catastrophic accident. It is less catastrophic for the truck driver to eliminate the driver in front of him that he absolutely cannot avoid hitting versus the alternative, which would mean swerving with a ton of cargo that he's hauling. I always think of this when I'm driving and never get in front of huge trucks and always leave plenty of space as a buffer to try and get the hell out of the way if I need to. Story 62. When you mobile deposit a check, a person at the bank or credit union has to manually approve it, even though the app says it's an automated system. We were told day one to never tell the clients that we manually approve deposits, as they would hound us for it every time. It was nice being able to blame the system when we forgot to approve deposits on time every now and then. Story 63. I work in a high school as a science teacher. There's a lot of industry secrets, but since schools are publicly funded, I'm not sure how secret it all truthfully is, LOL. I guess he'll try to share what I know, though. 1. In a lot of states, a school's funding is tied to its graduation rates. So what do you think a school is going to do to ensure they don't lose funding? Inflate graduation rates. If a student can bullshit their way through to senior year, the school will do anything to make sure they pass. Excuse assignments, excuse absences, encourage teachers to change a student's grade, etc. It's disingenuous and destroys the value of a high school degree. We already inflate grades and give kids too much grace as is, but with seniors, it's so much worse. This is hands down the worst legislative move affecting public education currently. 2, there are still a lot of good kids. I know that sounds like it goes against my first point a little bit, but it's true. If you look at Teacher Talk or follow a teacher on Facebook, you'd think the next generation is going to cause the downfall of man. Not true. I teach a bunch of wonderful students. I have students with 10x the drive and 10x the natural smarts I did as a child. But talking about the brilliant, well-behaved kids doesn't get reactions on social media. Don't fall into the habit of doom scrolling and thinking every kid is bad. I have so many kids who don't fit the mold those posts create. 3, these kids are much more accepting than the kids I was with in high school. Don't get me wrong, kids still bully and gossip and whatnot, but they truthfully are less racist and less homophobic and less bigoted a lot of the time. My high school had a gender sexuality alliance club, but the posters would get ripped off the walls. It's just not like that anymore. The kids can still be male body part and form their little cliques, but they are generally more accepting. You can see the baby steps of acceptance starting to take hold with these kids. 4, parents game the system that is accommodations. I have had parents tell me to my face they take their kids to the doctors and schedule appointments with the guidance counselors so they can get their kid labeled with any disability, disorder, shortcoming possible. Not even because they think their kid actually has any issues. They just want their kid to have extra time on standardized tests. As a teacher, it sucks to sit in on a meeting. It's legally required to have a teacher in the meeting and just listen to why the straight A kid needs 1.5 time to take the SAT and the parent has a smug look on their face the whole time. Accommodations are handed out like candy. Most adults who enter this field are shocked that 50 of their kids have some sort of accommodation. If every kid has an accommodation, it takes away from the resources needed for the students who actually struggle in the classroom. 5, teachers are people too. You have adult friends who party all the time, adult friends going through breakups, divorces, adultery, adult friends who haven't grown up all that much. For some reason, a lot of people thinks this doesn't apply to teachers. It absolutely does, lol. This isn't true of everyone, but some people think teachers are all vanilla rule following folk. I tell people I'm a teacher, and then they're shocked to hear I like drinking beer, going to live sporting events, and going to concerts. Like, I'm only a teacher 40 hours a week. In me every hour outside of that. And the same is true for my coworkers. I don't sleep at the school, LOL. Answer. Parents game the system that is accommodations. I have had parents tell me to my face they take their kids to the doctors and schedule appointments with the guidance counselors so they can get their kid labeled with any disability, disorder, shortcoming possible. Not even because they think their kid actually has any issues. They just want their kid to have extra time on standardized tests. As a teacher, it sucks to sit in on a meeting. It's legally required to have a teacher in the meeting and just listen to why this straight A kid needs 1.5 time to take the SAT and the parent has a smug look on their face the whole time. As a parent with a kid that has learning disabilities, getting the school to approve a 504 plan that works is a fudged nightmare. Story 64. Any market research survey that heavily features responses from India should be taken with a heavy grain of salt. Due to cultural norms, the responses are overwhelmingly positive across the board. A super high NPS score in India is not a finding, it's an expectation. Additionally, always be extremely suspicious of market research surveys that include a lot of open-ended responses that are exclusively online. Surveys with a lot of OE responses tend to pay significantly more per response. These surveys are completely overrun by chatbots. This is especially bad if the surveys target expert respondents. Story 65. In the visual effects industry, everybody learns on bootleg software of some sort. That is why those 2,600 list prices don't surprise anyone. I even had a high-level employee of one of the companies that make it yell at me once. We don't care about some lone kid using it. We wanted to nail the companies pirating it. He was upset because I had heard through an industry grapevine that a big post house had been caught with bootleg software. Story 66. Glasses are a complete scam. Those super high-index, ultra-thin, aspheric lenses in that designer frame, the same plastic manufactured in China as everybody else. Whatever brand name it says, it's Luxottica. Whatever they tell you about the lenses, they're the same as everyone else. Your 800 Armani glasses with the ultra-thin lenses are the same as my 45 Zennies. Story 67. Your massage therapist doesn't care about your size or your body hair, but they appreciate when you've showered within a few days of your appointment and have brushed your teeth. They aren't judging you for the things you feel self-conscious about, but they are judging you if you are an entitled jerk. Saying things like, "My wife would not be happy if she knew how hot you were," although it may seem to you like a harmless compliment, is creepy and will get you on the do not schedule list. That one shouldn't be a secret, but apparently there are men who are oblivious to this. Story 68. Cities are full of free and legal parking spots because of shoddy planning and lazy sign installers. They just feel so stupid that no one harmful behavior them. Story 69. 20 years ago, I bartended at a place that rhymes with Schmoppelbeesen when serving the regular bar drinkers. I would ask if they wanted a short or a tall beer, supposed to be 16 verse 23s, and I was surprised that they would always order a short one. So after a while, I asked one of them why they always ordered a short one, and he told me to fill a tall with water and dump it into a short and see what happens. Literally is the same exact amount of liquid. Never order a tall or mucho anything. The mucho is literally extra ice and club soda with no extra booze. Cheers. Story 70. Dealerships mark up your interest rate and extended warranties are marked up to the moon. Ask your finance manager what the buy rate is for your loan, as well as the cost for your warranty. You're welcome. Story 71. I worked for FedEx Trade Networks clearing customs shipments and almost anyone buying anything over $800 or stuff from China, and a few select other countries have to provide what's called a 5106. A 5106 is a form the U.S. government uses for duties and tax purposes and but on the form, you need to provide a Social Security or EIN number. We started working remote in 2021 and on my work computer from inside my house with nobody being able to ever know I had access to hundreds of Social Security numbers, addresses, names, and everything to easily steal identities. That's not even the kicker. This is an entry-level position and anyone can work it and have access to the chute. If you import personally from overseas and need to provide a 5106, you're better off getting a LLC to avoid the very high possibility that some dipshit FedEx hired doesn't snap a photo of your 5106 form from his phone. Answer, oh man. As a programmer, one of my earlier jobs was at a financial place as a junior dev. I had full access to our entire company database, including everyone's SSN and salary and everything, but also data on kids and dependents for health insurance and payroll and whatnot. And we also had similar data for all the customer companies. Blew me away how unsecure such secret data was. Story 72. Rich people give their expensive art to art galleries, and the galleries have to pay for insurance and restoration while it's in their possession. The gallery then displays the art for a number of months or even years, and when the rich person wants it back, it's worth even more money now that it's been on display at a famous art gallery and garnered interest. Basically allows rich people to print money. Story 73. ER veterinarian. When your pets are hospitalized or need to stay at the clinic, unless they're aggressive, need to be monitored very carefully, or were absolutely slammed, they are constantly getting positive attention from the staff. I've had kennel attendants and techs cuddle up with patients on their breaks. Myself and colleagues have made phone calls or typed up records while holding on to your pets. We routinely talk about how cute the patients are. In fact, it's a running joke that we would get fired immediately if we worked in human medicine, etc. And we do get attached to your pets. We know that your pet got into your plant substance, and we truly don't care. Seriously, just be honest. We operate on a triage basis. Sicker things are seen first, regardless of how long others have been waiting. If you're a shoot person and you're constantly up front complaining to staff about the wait times, the decor, why there isn't enough staff, being difficult in other ways, being dismissive to the non-doctors, and your pet is stable and has been triaged similarly to another pet that came in around the same time, We're not picking up your file until we have to. So much of my job involves giving bad news, talking to emotional people who often take out their feelings on those around them, and having to defend the costs of emergency care and surgery, that I'm not going to eagerly jump into taking a file for someone who's being difficult before they've even been spoken to. Answer, LOL, my husband is an ER vet, and I can confirm at least the first and second points based on his stories and texts from work. The number of times he's written clinical notes with a dog's head in his lap in their kennel is heartwarming. Vets do care. Also, the number of times he's had to explain to clients that he doesn't care if they smoke plant substance is incredible. You're going to save yourself a lot of money on diagnostics if you're just honest. Story 74. Most of the bugs found in video games weren't missed by the testers. There was a production decision not to fix them. Story 75. I was a secretary at a roofing company. Idiot. I was told this from one of the estimators that scummy roofers do that shoot. He was called out to incidents relating to this. If your neighbor gets a roof done and you live in a row home, and after they get their roof done, your house starts leaking. It may have been a dirty trick that some roofers do. They'll climb up and take a knife and cut a hole in the neighbor's roof. Then, when you need a roofing estimate, they would hope word of mouth from the neighbor will get you to get your roof done. It's super shoot. Story 76. This is kind of a known secret, but all reality television is set up and scripted by producers and then post-scripted again in edit. Interview bites are either fed to cast members to say, or editors cobble together brand new sentences to support whatever narrative the showrunners want to convey. Story 77. Large companies often just decline to pay invoices. Everything is negotiable. If consumers knew this and followed the same standards, the entire world economy would collapse. Story 78. The military typically disposes of old vehicles by parking it somewhere on a large base and abandoning it. Sometimes they use them as training targets. It's cool but eerie to see. I know where there's a lake that's full of Sherman tanks. They drove them out there in the late 50s in the winter and left them to fall through. Answer. Final disposition of U.S. military material is typically the responsibility of the Defense Logistics Agency, DLA. Guidance for disposal and/or reutilization of military material is covered in DoD Manual 4166.21, Volumes 1-4. Volume 4, Defense Materiel, Disposition, Instructions for Hazardous Property, and Other Special Processing Materiel, contains guidance on the disposition of vehicles. If items cannot be reused or sold, some are sold as scrap after being properly demilitarized. Of course, the U.S. has thousands of tanks and other vehicles stored at military depots. I believe a lot of our tanks currently in storage are at the Sierra Army Depot in CA. Sierra Army Depot. Not an expert on the disposition side, but I worked my entire career for DLA. Story 79. A lot of the private blood tests actually take longer to process than the NHS, public free blood tests, because most of the private healthcare providers haven't bought into the widely used digital system that's used. Instead, they have to be processed manually, which means going through the extra step of getting the main lab to code them. Staff who process manuals also need more training due to the wide variety of forms used and the stupid goddamn shoot handwriting we have to put up with. So there's fewer staff who are trained to process them, and they tend to sit there unprocessed for longer than the easier electronic blood samples. Story 80. Ever had those expensive Ghirardelli sundaes at their stores? Yeah, that's Dyer's ice cream with homemade hot fudge. Save yourself $16.02 and just buy the 4.95 bottle of Ghirardelli hot fudge and get the rest at the store. Recipe: 5 O's scoop, hot fudge, 5 O's scoop, more hot fudge, whipped cream, crushed almonds. Story 81. In corporate culture, the IT staff can be your best resource or your biggest enemy. They deal with idiots all day, so say hello and treat them nicely. Not only when you have a problem, bring them some donuts or something randomly. They don't forget and will take care of you next time you have a computer crisis. I've gotten new monitors, extra keyboards for home, cords, whatever I needed because I took some time to say hi and ask how their day was going. Same with the maintenance facilities team. They are two teams you want on your side. Story 82. Depending on the specific deal and artist, Ticketmaster splits all those fees with the artist, sometimes at 100, in addition to the face door price. Plus the artist gets a guarantee. The fees are part of the price of the ticket, and Ticketmaster takes the heat for the high prices so the artist can look good for the fans. Source: built the software Live Nation used to book these deals. Story 83. When you're buying a higher-end refrigerator, you're basically only paying for fancier doors. Most of the inner workings are the same, just a different door configuration. I used to work in the appliance industry. Answer: To be fair, the difference between a low-end kitchen and a high-end kitchen is mostly fancier finishes. You can spend $150 on a melamine cabinet door or $1,500 on a handmade exotic lumber cabinet door, and they both hide your plates the same. A high-end kitchen can have higher performance features, but of overall spend, those are way overshadowed by the aesthetics. The price hike between 36 and 48 fridges is crazy, though. Story 84. I'm repair tech at Chuck E. Cheese. There are some games that we can adjust the payout for and some we can't. We have a number called ticket per play or ticket per tap that we have to try to maintain. Every game and ride is adjusted somehow so we can get to that average number. The length of the ride is so you will tap your card more or less times. Some games have fixed ticket payout. We can't adjust, so we adjust other games up or down to get the whole average to that magical number. If one game we can't change pays out 4 tickets on average, and the number we want to reach is 6, for instance, I would adjust another game that can be adjusted to 7 or 8 to compensate, because the boss only cares about the average payout on a whole, not on the individual games, unless it's insanely high or low. If a game is cheating you out of tickets, we probably did that on purpose to compensate for something else. This also goes for the claw machine. We can control how often it pays out. Tickets can be bought at 1 penny per ticket. If you drop a quarter into a token machine, if it doesn't pay you 25 tickets, you're better off just buying tickets. No, we don't reuse pizza. It's cheaper and easier to just make another one since we get the ingredients in bulk. It's just that we cut into smaller slices, so it's harder to do right. Plus, the kitchen personnel usually doesn't care about making it look perfect. No, the job isn't fun. My job is to make sure you have fun. My job is stressful. I'll answer any questions people have. Answer: one of my best days ever was when I took my kid to Dave Buster's. They do the digital tickets there. You play the game, then insert your card to collect the points. Anyway, the place was pretty dead when we were there. I noticed one game that said there were points to collect, so I swiped the card and didn't pay much attention to how many points I collected. I didn't even have a very good idea of what a large amount of points were. So we finish up playing and go to get some prizes. To my surprise, we have like hundreds of thousands of points. So much that the person at the prize counter has to call the remainder over. He asks me questions about the card, etc., looking at me suspiciously. I tell him about the game that I collected the points from. We go over to look at it, and it is incrementing points up automatically and quickly. Basically, it was broken and loading on points. It's your lucky day, he said. We got all sorts of stuff. Glasses, toys, electronics. It was probably like 350 worth of stuff. Like actually 350, not DB 350. Story 85. Don't drink the tap water, coffee, or tea on airplanes. Ever. Potable water systems are gross. I've had to flush them before, and oh man, if you want to drink on a flight, get bottled water or a can of soda or adult beverage. Story 86. The software that powers the entire financial system is unbelievably badly made and fragile. It's all a hodgepodge of hacky software poorly stitched together by bottom-tier engineers. Story 87. If you just actually fudge reboot your chute, you'd have to spend a fraction of the time dealing with broken tech. Story 88. Nobody gets discovered in the acting world anymore. The odds of you moving to LA, NYC, London, etc., and being picked as an unknown for a major show or film are virtually zero. It's not how it used to be, where talent, charisma, and good enough looks can charm a casting director at an in-person audition. Everything is self-taped, and these CDs are sitting on their couches, eating ice cream, and scrolling through the first 5 seconds of hundreds of tapes until they see a recognizable face. And those are the ones that work hard. 9.5 out of 10 times, someone's son or daughter is getting picked regardless of their ability or appeal, or on the rare occasion that someone does have star power, they almost always come from money and connections, and it's a calculated campaign to catapult them to stardom. Timothée Chalamet, Florence Pugh, and Anya Taylor-Joy are all examples of this, and everyone legitimately in the industry knows. They all came from rich and connected families, and their careers were given to them by a network of people who all worked in tandem with each other. The only genuinely talented and successful major star that I can think of who actually worked their jerk off and did it the organic way is Zendaya. And even then, her parents had her in acting from toddlerhood. It was basically chosen for her. I've been successful in the industry since I was a teenager. And anytime someone asks me for advice about getting into acting, I tell them to try really hard to find something else that they love and can see themselves doing. Answer: Funny enough, I went to elementary and high school with an extremely famous sports athlete, household name. I recall that when he and I were around 6 years old, his name and picture was in the paper for something extremely trivial, like running a lemonade stand for charity. Stuff like this would happen up until high school, where he actually was scouted. Not to say that hard work didn't play a role. He's considered literally the best in the sport. But it was not until now that I realized that his parents worked to cultivate his image for years. Story 89. That Reddit is asking questions like this to draw out deep expertise so they can sell it for AI training at a higher value. Story 90. In the film industry, producers are utter scumbags. Not much of a secret, but I feel like too many people still seem impressed or think there's some kind of prestige around producers. No, they're just adult children with rich friends who think they're geniuses while making every terrible creative decision ever. If you've ever seen a movie that was like, oh, it was awesome, except for that annoying nonsense that happened, the annoying nonsense is 100, the producer feeling like they need to be involved in the process. That's at best. At worst, they are actual rapists, which seems to happen a lot. Story 91. Medical equipment. Manufacturers jack up the prices of everything in the U.S. because they can. You can go to, say, India, buy something like a CAT scan machine, ship it to the U.S. Express Air, and it will still be cheaper than buying it in the U.S. Or the little BP carts? The batteries in there are the same as game feeder batteries sold at Tractor Supply. You can buy cases of those batteries from TSC for the price of one from the company that makes the BP cart. Story 92. There's a good chance your college TA is surviving lectures by staying one chapter ahead of you in the textbook. Story 93. I work in banking. Not a huge secret anymore, but fraudsters are trying to get at your money 24 hours a day. It rarely works, but the amount of effort that goes into it is insane. Under most circumstances, it's more the bank's problem than yours, though, as they generally have to reimburse you for it. Because it's our problem, we will put a lot of effort into prevention measures, cybersecurity staff. I mention this because cases of fraud have been on the rise lately. Story 94. Good librarians are the most militant people you're going to find. They will sit there quietly, help you timidly, but if you fudge with them, their books, or try to violate a patron's privacy and get patron information, they will go fudge crazy. I've never seen anyone make bold such matter-of-fact promises to turn to violent anti-establishment behavior as a pissed-off librarian. It's adorably terrifying. Story 95. In law, specifically litigation, the concept of truth is a fallacy. The truth, other than universal truths, such as the sun rising in the east, is a matter of what one side can prove and get the judge jury to believe. Truth is malleable, legal facts are provable and appealable. Story 96. Hospital systems lease and own tens to hundreds of thousands of square feet of medical office space that they don't use on the off chance they need it, or sometimes even just to prevent other competing hospitals from having it. Story 97. Recipe for Coca-Cola. Ingredients: citrate, caffeine 1 oz, extract vanilla 1 oz, flavoring 2.5 oz, detailed below. Fe, Coca-Cola, 4 oz, citric acid, 3 oz, lime juice, 1 quart sugar, 30 bulbs, water 2.5 gallons, caramel, sufficient flavoring. Oil, orange, 80 oil now. Lemon, 120 oil, nutmeg, 40 oil, cinnamon, 40 oil, coriander, oil mines, neroli, 40. Adult beverage, 1 quart, let stand for 24 hours. These are all in U.S. imperial measurements, and the flavoring units are in minims or mins. 1 min is literally 1 drop of liquid. That flavoring section, combined with the vanilla extract, is what is collectively known at the company as 7X, the ultra-secret 7 things which make the flavor. The adult beverage is only used to extract the flavors and doesn't end up in the final drink. Answer: I worked at a golf course and we only sold Pepsi products. By accident, one day I put some Pepsi in my cup that had a little chai tea in it, and it tasted a lot like Coke. Whenever a customer complained about us not having Coke, I would make them my secret recipe, and most of them were pleasantly surprised. Makes sense now because of the spices in your recipe. Story 98. Substances products do need some crazy toxic solvents to be manufactured, but it's my job to make sure that stuff is out before it's approved for production. Story 99. If you're in Jerk, you get quoted higher labor rates. Nothing vindictive, but at the end of the day, your job will take longer to complete if you're breathing down the crew's backs and trying to nitpick and micromanage. It's the only way to accurately quote and schedule. Answer: I feel like this is true for everything. The secretary at my work used to book my hotels, and the prices always seemed high to me. One day I was chatting with her about an upcoming work trip in an area we had never been to before. We looked at hotels together, and then she got on the phone to book it. She was so incredibly rude to the person on the other end that she didn't get the deal she thought she was going to get. After that day, I started booking my own rooms and getting all kinds of deals all over the place just by treating the person on the other end like a person. Story 100. If you clean your apartment spotless before moving out, the managers will often overlook small damages. But if it's nasty, I guarantee they will itemize every detail to charge the absolute maximum possible. Story 101. In movies and TV, especially ones that involve action scenes, often when you see an actor wearing a button-up shirt, it's made extra long with little snaps that go between the legs, like a giant baby onesie. This is so the shirt doesn't come untucked when running or moving a lot. My friend worked in wardrobe and blew my mind when they showed me this. Story 102. I'm a makeup artist based in Los Angeles. I cater primarily to A and B list actresses and high-end models. None of them, and I mean none of them, use the skincare that they are spokesmodels for. If they claim they use some substances, store or department store brand, or even their own brand, which is just private label bought from a factory, they are completely lying. They all use the same one or two brands which are in the know, exclusive, and beyond expensive. The kind of skincare that's made individually in a private luxury lab and not in some industrial factory in San Bernardino. Story 103. Worked in schools for a decade and was in a high-end master's in education program and did a 130-page paper on the issues with the U.S. school system. Grades are arbitrary. Unless scientifically developed and tested for years, no assignment is anything like an accurate assessment, and everything in teaching is multiple steps of simplification from any well-researched white papers. The best way to teach is with direct practical applications which directly benefit the students or the local community. Woodshop and geometry should be the same class. Students should be publishing their works. Art shows should be standard and public, and the art should be displayed in the local community. History projects should be for public consumption and involve real research. Learning and performing Shakespeare should be the same project and performed for the public. If the only end result is a grade, then it isn't meaningful learning and isn't teaching skills. We, of course, do essentially none of these things, and the good ideas are always dumbed down and simplified for teachers because most don't really know much about how the human brain functions. Story 104. Open houses don't sell houses. They're solely for the listing agent to meet people and hopefully get more clients. Most people who go to open houses are nosy neighbors and people who spend their weekends checking out open houses. Story 105. Bookstores do not return small paperbacks, mass-market paperbacks, to publishers. Instead, their covers are ripped off and those are sent back to the publishers. It's cheaper to print more books than it is to ship the already printed books around a whole bunch. When I was 17 at my first bookstore job and had to rip the covers off of mass-market paperbacks, I was horrified. Now I think it's kind of fun. If you want to know which books get destroyed, look for an S inside a triangle near the barcode. Story 106. Healthcare is held together with duct tape and twine. Related, pay attention to the treatment release forms. Your health data is being sent everywhere and there's not shoot you can do about it. No sign, no treatment. Edit. Apparently it is possible to opt out of your state's health information exchange, but it must be done with the exchange itself. The process varies by state and can be painful. Story 107. You think your banking habits aren't being looked at, but so many things trigger your account that you probably get looked at much more than you thought, even if you didn't make a large cash transaction. Story 108. It's not a secret, but Hollywood promotes many lies about my job. I'm a fire sprinkler tech. Hollywood always shows every head going off during a fire. Only the head that gets hot goes off. If it's a 10-story building and a fire is on the first floor, why would the heads on the 10th floor go off? Plus, there isn't enough water for that. Pull stations do not set off sprinklers. They are only tied to the alarm, not the piping. The only reason it bugs me is because it's life safety, and if someone hesitates to pull a pull station during a fire, people die. Story 109. Marriott actually has 6 tiers on its rewards program. For most people, there are 5, starting at silver and working your way up through the shiny metals to ambassador, which requires spending 100 nights and more than $23,000 on rooms in a year, and you have to maintain this to keep it. But what their website doesn't tell you is that there is a tier called Cobalt, which can only be given out by the CEO. Naturally, this tier can transform even a lowly Fairfield into a full-service property. I've never seen one, but the only reason I know was because I was given the GM's training manual while learning how to do night audit. Answer. I know someone who had a similar level from a luxury hotel chain. They traveled for business a lot, It was their company and stayed exclusively at those hotels. They also stayed at them for any travel and would take a few vacations a year. They're also part of the company's timeshare vacation club at a good level. As their level went up, they would stay at the better properties in the big cities. Their membership level hit the top tier pretty quickly and stayed there for years. One day, the company reached out, "Hey, here's a new level we created for members like you. You're basically top tier for life now, even if you stop staying with us tomorrow." They, of course, continue to stay at their properties exclusively, as long as there is one where they're going, get amazing prices, the best room available, whatever bonus amenities are provided, and zero hassle. Story 110. So, reading this thread just confirms that all companies are lying cunts that will say anything to get your money. And people are mostly shallow lying pricks. What a fudge surprise. Story 111. The difference between you and those above you is sometimes just the title issued by the company. And as you either move up the ranks yourself or start rubbing elbows with those higher ups, will you realize that most of the top brass are relying 100 upon the actual work of the unsung peons below them. Story 112. This may be a bit outdated, but I'm sure it still applies in some areas. Companies that handle credit card payments might still be storing unencrypted credit card data, including CVV numbers, even if the payments are being handled by a third party. This has been illegal in Europe for a few years, but many companies were still doing it at least up until 2 years ago. In this cases, I can't even begin to explain how easy it is for any employee to access this data. A more current comment, budget airlines make money out of people's scatterbrainedness. Many times, if your case bag doesn't exactly fit the measures, this goes for height, width, and depth, you could be charged up 70 or more. Please read the conditions. Story 113. 99, not exaggerating, of financial advisors are not trying to help you. Their thought process when you walk into their office is, how much money can I take out of this person's pocket and put into mine? They do not think what investment financial solution is best for this person. They think, what is the highest commission product I think I can reasonably get this person to say yes to? Story 114. Large event venues will snipe you with extra costs at every opportunity. If you're using in-house staff and equipment, there's quite often a markup on costs of $100 to $500 on the rental fees for certain equipment. They will charge you 2x the freelance day rate for each technician you have on site throughout the day, even if they're only staff, and will have rules about you, need certain types of technician even when you don't. Most commonly, this is a lighting or AV technician in smaller rooms where the AV is plug and play HDMI switcher and a projector on a remote and the lights are on a fader. Even when the venue heavy discounts with their suppliers, they'll mark up the base cost from their suppliers and use that. If you decide to bring your own crew or production equipment into the venue to avoid the above fuckskery, they'll mess you around in other ways. E.g., you'll need to pay for power and internet at an insane markup. E.g., you'll end up paying something like $1,200 for one 633 PowerPoint per day, so if you need several around one large venue that mounts up. Or for internet, they'll charge you something like $200 per day for a single 2 millibit line. Once saw the quote for an esports event, and they were being charged $1,500, $2,000 per day per 20 millib line, and they needed 10. Catering, you were looking about 5 per low-quality sandwich, and about the same for a single bottle of water for your audience with no option for running water and rule on no one bringing in their own. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.